If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.
Hey everyone, it's Melanie Johnson. We are here with another great guest, Andy Falco. I've known Andy for years. I don't even want to name how many years, but we kind of came up in the ranks together. And he is an expert authority at live streaming video technology. And if you're wondering why you should know that, like, well, why do I need to know that? I'm an author. Let me tell you, you're going to hear all the benefits of why you should do that, the advantages of doing that, and what's the latest, greatest in technology and how to move forward with that. So stay tuned, fasten your seatbelts because Andy's going to take you for a great ride. Andy, thanks for coming.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you.
So tell me a little bit. I know the story, but I want everyone to hear the story of how you kind of got started, because you're an author, you've done a lot, you've been a police officer, and now you're really this streaming expert. How did that journey get you starting that process to where you are now?
Well, I think like many people that become entrepreneurs, they have this passion about this one thing, whatever that may be. If it's a gardening, if it's creating smoothies. And for me, it was dog training. I became a police canine handler. Then I became a police canine dog trainer. And then I began to train pet dogs. We are good at that. At some point, we realized that that we may want to start a business or something like that. And we're not really thinking that we also have to learn accounting, we have to learn to market, we have to learn all this other stuff. And so my system of dog training that I created actually happened to be very successful. And the success was way above and beyond what I ever thought it would be, where I began to get on television and radio stations and podcasts and a whole bunch of stuff. And so success was coming along, but with that success and some other things that I decided to do with that business, it was going really well, but then a huge failure occurred. And the reason being is because I was having success with dog training, but in the background, I was failing in a number of areas. And so I was able to finally hire an accountant that helped me with accounting, which I am horrible with numbers. I hired an assistant who helped me with keeping up with emails and phone calls and that kind of stuff, which you have to do. And then I saw some benefits in that. The only thing I was missing was marketing. And it was really hard at the time that this occurred, which was about 15 years ago, to find anybody that really knew about social media marketing, about video marketing and that kind of stuff, because video was really starting to it was becoming apparent that video was the way to go, that video was necessary. So I think you and I about the same time, it may have been longer than 15 years ago now that I'm thinking about it, but we ended up in a group of people down in San Diego learning how to be everywhere now was their slogan. And that is to create videos and then multi-purpose them in many ways. You could use them and have them transcribed, use them as print. We could use them as audio recordings for such things as podcasts and that kind of stuff. And so it was because of all of that, because I was failing miserably in marketing in some of these other areas, because I wasn't prepared and I really had to learn it. I just couldn't find anybody. And so it was the one thing that I decided to take on. And as you said, maybe I'm an expert, but I'm an expert in the sense that I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning and I learned from those mistakes. Eventually, I now have several podcasts. I have several different TV shows that I've been able to start. And most of the success I have now financially has to do with me finally figuring out that video is super important, no matter what genre or what entrepreneur adventure that you're on.
What do you say to somebody who's afraid to do it? I used to be a television news anchor and I still get, I should just be able to no problem. I can just get right out there. But when I have to do it myself and be the only person out there, I have this fear factor of what if I'm not good enough? What if I don't know the technology? How do you deal with that?
Well, it's never been more simple to go live on any of the platforms like Facebook or YouTube or Twitter than it is today, or even Instagram. And that is just with this phone right here, right? It's so simple. It's unlike when you probably owned the broadcast company that you and your husband owned, it cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to create any kind of show and to get it on the air where people can see it. Well, now we have everything that you need right here. So just know you have the technology. Anybody watching this right now, I know for sure you have the technology in your pocket, in your purse, or in your hand. Secondly, the fear of getting started has to do with just pushing that button. And I wish there was some secret formula for you to get over the sound of your voice, to get used to the sound of your laugh, to get used to the way that you look on camera. I mean, I don't know that there is any. It's just you have to push the live button and just do it. Most people, you can go on to almost any station on television, whatever it is that you choose to watch, and see people that don't have maybe what you would think are the best sounding voice or have the greatest appearances. I'm not sure what your, bar is, but you can find anybody. And there are so many names that come to mind, but I don't want to particularly, pinpoint anybody in particular. But I venture to say that there's many people that look like you, sound like you, and laugh like you, that are doing just fine and probably making a heck of a lot of money doing what they're doing. It's about the authority and the expertise that you have that people want to listen to. Once you get past any of those things, you'll be able to share your message to somebody that needs to hear it. So one last thing on the subject is you have to get over it. Just push the button and go live. It'll sound horrible all the way through maybe the 10th or 15th time. Then it'll begin to get better. It's normal. But the most important thing is you have to get this message out, whatever it is that you have that somebody needs, so that they can hear it. You're doing the world a disservice by holding in this information that somebody really needs to hear only because you don't like the way you sound or look or how your laugh sounds. So you need to do it for the community that needs to hear it. You need to push that button and go live.
What you're saying is don't be selfish,
Right.
Put yourself out there and share with the world. So we're going to get into a lot of different stuff here, but we talk about live, go live, do it live. Is it okay to record versus live? What are the benefits to recording and putting it out there versus doing it live?
Well, I guess I think it depends on your personality. I would say if you're a perfectionist, it's dangerous to do a recording because you're going to edit and you're going to edit and then you're going to edit and then you're not going to send it out. Because it's never going to be perfect. You'll never get it perfect and never get it right. So I have a little bit of that. And so early on, I said, you know what, I'm going to do it live and I'm just going to push through. We have a mutual friend, his name is Bruce. And for years, Bruce has always shared with other people whenever we've been, say, on a stage together or we've been teaching together on something. The one thing he always says about me, he says, you know what, Andy just doesn't care. He just goes through it and he makes mistakes and he doesn't care. Well, I kind of care, but I've never let it stop me. But I also think what people like because of me going live and being willing to go on there, somewhat raw, is that they appreciate it. And especially when I'm talking about entrepreneurs, they go, you know what? He's able to do this. And I see that he makes a mistake every so often, but it really didn't change the content. The content was still good. He may have flubbed up a word here or there or stuttered on something or misspoke and then came back and fixed whatever he misspoke. But what I like about that is that he's real. And I think more people are appreciative of somebody who's real because it's so hard to find people that are real. And so I think for your question again, going live and doing it, with the understanding that there's no edits, there's no stopping and starting again, that it really gets you started. If you can trust yourself to actually release what you are going to, put out there for the world to see, then, there's nothing wrong with making a few edits here and there and that kind of stuff. And so I want to guard people against doing anything that will stop them from putting the content out there. If you can record it and make a couple edits and be sure to send it out, then do that. If you are, somebody that is just a perfectionist, I know that sounds weird. I know this sounds the opposite, but if you're a perfectionist, I'm telling you, we know people that write books, right? We know people that will write a transcript from a book and never release that book because they can't get over the editing process. So it's the same for video. People are the same way. And sometimes we tell people, just write it. Just write it. It'll never get out. And we have to release it once we get a few good edits and get it, good enough to get out there. Then good enough is good enough. Let's get it out there. Sorry, that was very long-winded. So
I like that. I love all of that. And isn't there an advantage? Like I always think about when you're doing live, I've watched your live streaming, you're interacting with the audience. People are talking to you and you're answering questions and you're getting people engaged versus if you record it, you're going to have to go back afterwards if you get the questions. But I think, is there an advantage to that, engaging the audience in real time versus the recording?
Yeah, absolutely. I use something called StreamYard. And I want to just caution, you don't want to do what I'm about to say until you have a few shows under your belt. But what, in regard to what Mel is saying here, is that the great thing about StreamYard is that you can see comments that are showing up in your social media that you're broadcasting to. So whether it's Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and I also do Rumble, that when somebody comments, it shows up on the side of my screen and I can actively see what's happening and what people are commenting on. And it gives me more content. It gives me the ability to relate to the people that are watching, to make sure whatever I'm talking about is interesting to the audience. And so it really helps me in guiding the show so that the people watching are interested in what I have to say. And so absolutely, when I'm live, it does make it a little bit more interactive so that the people are able to ask questions at real time and I'm able to answer them at real time. Always in social media, when you go live, there is it stays on there, and now people can watch the replay. And now they can still comment, just so you have the knowledge that you can see those comments later. They'll show up in your timeline where you can answer them later. But as far as doing the live show, it does make it a little bit more interactive. And again, keeps it relative to the content that the people are, want to see at the time.
So why should an author do live video? So I've got an author, they've got a new book that's coming out, or maybe even their book has been out for a while. What advantages is it for them to do it? And give us some ideas of what they should be doing live from their book. And we can take it even from, specifically more from a nonfiction advantage, but there is, even if you have a fiction book, there's an advantage to that.
Yeah. The first thing you need to remember, and I want to make sure and address this first, is that when you decide to go live or even record, and where you're going to put the recording, is to make sure that you're doing it in the arena where the right people are watching. So if your authority is in something that's business related, just for an example, you want to be able to go live on something like LinkedIn, right? As opposed to maybe Facebook, just as an example. So again, you're gonna want to make sure you're on the platform that's going to reach the audience that you're looking for as you are going through whatever content is that's in your book, that's going to raise your level of authority. That now, not only do I have a book, but now I have the show where I'm going to show you that I'm an authority and why maybe you should buy my book. And so it can go both directions, right? It's both, you've written a book, now let's share it with people. Now I'm going to show them what an authority I am in this thing, why they need to follow me, why they need to listen to me. And so it's really important to get that authority out there. And then people will begin to watch, they'll begin to share the content on their social media platforms. Other people will begin to see what it is you have to offer in your book. And it is really a great way to reach the people directly in who you want to impact with the content of your book. And so picking the right place to show up is the most important thing. In other words, if you were selling produce, you wouldn't go to the pet store to sell your produce. And so you want to make sure that you have that, and then building your authority through sharing the content of your book and why people need to buy it is a great way to do it.
Yeah. And StreamYard, does StreamYard go on LinkedIn or no? I thought it didn't work on LinkedIn.
Nope, it does. The hard part about LinkedIn is LinkedIn has to give you permission to go live in LinkedIn. And so you need to be an active user of LinkedIn. That's really what they like to see. They like to see that you post often. They like to see that you give good content on LinkedIn. And then you send in a request to go live in LinkedIn. And once they give you that request, then you can connect your StreamYard to LinkedIn and you'll be able to go live.
And I love one of the points that you made kind of earlier on, when you use something like StreamYard or another tool like that, you can give us some other options, is that you're not just doing it just in Facebook. Like, don't just, well, if you're going to do it, at least just do it, but put it on multiple platforms at the same time. So you're doing it once and you're reaching an audience on all these different platforms. I think you mentioned like 5 places that you're streaming at the same time. So I think that's a really big point. And what should I be talking about? I mean, what should I say? I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. I've got the courage to do it. I'm going to do it 10 times. I'm going to do it once a week. I've committed to do it for 8 weeks, once a week, but I don't know what the heck to talk about.
You talk about what's inside your book. And I know that's kind of counterintuitive to some people. Like, why am I going to tell them what's in my book and then sell them my book? But if you look at anybody like Brendan Burchard, or gosh, there's a whole bunch of other names. What's his first name?
Gary
Vaynerchuk.
Gary V.
Yeah. Any of these guys, if you've bought their book, they talk about the content of their book all the time, right? They share the content of their book all the time, and then people buy the book. And you got to understand that people are not necessarily taking notes as they are sharing, chapter 2 of their book and talking about, the 5-step ways to become wealthy overnight. There's often driving, they're often watching you while they're at, their kids' soccer practice or at their soccer game, and they're doing other things and they go, wow, and they don't catch all the other broadcasts. So each one of your broadcasts could be a portion of each chapter of your book, and giving them, if you have 10, steps, give them 4 steps, right? And then if you want to see more steps, buy my book and then give them a link to your book. If there's some side story of, how you got to the place where you wrote your book, say, man, I was really struggling at the time. Things were really bad. My story is that I had this great dog training business. Things were going really well. I decided to open a security company that used dogs for narcotics searches inside schools and companies. We had police cars, we had dogs, we had bicycles, and our company grew so big, so fast. The problem is, like I told you before, I wasn't good at the other things. And I turned this business, which was making a couple $1 million every month in services. I lost everything. We weren't making enough money to pay the bills because we weren't managing it correctly. And I lost everything. I nearly lost my house. They hung a sign on my door saying I needed to be out in 30 days. And this is about the time that we met. And I went to San Diego and said, I need help. I need to learn how to do this marketing. I need to get my, viewership up. I need to find more customers. I need to change my branding, all these kinds of things. And it helped. And so when I'm now speaking about video or marketing, video marketing, I use that story. So now back to your question, those are the things that you can talk about on your show, saying, hey, this is how I know this works. What I'm about to tell you works is because I lost everything. Got a divorce, nearly lost my house. I had 6 kids I had to feed. We were going to live in a car. And because of this, I was able to use these tools and techniques that saved everything. I saved my house. I just sold it for $300,000 more than what I bought it for. The house I nearly lost. And then you can go on and tell these stories and people go, oh my gosh, I want whatever that was. I'm there right now. I'm there where he was, 10 years ago. I want to save my house. I want to save my family. I want to save all the things that I've built over the years. How do I do that? It's by following this guy because he knows exactly how I feel and what I've been through. Sorry, I got all excited there.
And full disclosure, when I met Andy at that San Diego event, he was sleeping in his car.
Yes.
So,
I couldn't afford
a hotel room. Yeah.
I couldn't afford the hotel room. I couldn't afford the gas to get there, and I couldn't afford the ticket to get in. They gave me a free ticket to get in there. One of the people that were working for Mike Koenig's at the time gave me a free ticket. That's how bad things were. So
changed everything. And that's why Andy and I are both passionate about, giving people your information because it can change people's lives. When you do that, it can make just by listening to this, something is going to click with you that can change your life. And what I'm hearing from his story, if you're not getting it, is he's like, hey, I figured out what I wasn't good at. Get all the things underneath you, whether it's accounting services, whether it's marketing. And I love that Andy took, the only one that can do the videos about Andy is Andy, right? I mean, it's him, he's the talent. So you can't have somebody else talk for you about your products or services because you're the main person, you're the author. So get comfortable with that, get comfortable on camera and embrace this and follow him and see what he's doing. Tell us, so how do I get it set up? You say, I've got my phone, I can do it with my phone, but then you're talking about StreamYard. I don't really know what StreamYard is. People out there, I mean, I do, but other people out there are saying, well, what the heck is StreamYard? You've used Kajabi, you've used these other platforms to do all this stuff. Kind of tell us your evolution and what you're suggesting for someone for a starter kit to what they should use.
Well, you don't need StreamYard to start off. All the platforms, including, you have Instagram TV, you got Twitter, which now is out of Twitter. It used to be using Periscope, and now you can go live directly on Twitter. You can go directly live on Facebook, just using the app that's on your phone. So whatever social media is that you think is going to be best suited for you, you'll use that one. And then you just go live. It's very easy. It's like you're making a post and you go live. That was where I would start and just keep it simple and don't worry about looking at comments and don't worry about a whole bunch of other stuff. And you can even delete it. Say if you really do hate what happened, maybe somebody was behind you making the bunny ears, signs behind your head or something like that, like my kids, did in the early stages, then you can always delete it. But that's how you get started. Just do that and do it again 10, 15, 20 times until you feel comfortable pushing that live button. Once you do that, and you find out that you maybe want to go on a couple different platforms at the same time. So I'll just give you the example of the Living Fearless devotional that my wife and I do now every day. We go live every day. And I started off before I met my wife with my phone. I would drive to a park. I would put my phone on a tripod and I would read from a daily devotional book, just like this one right here. And so this daily devotional, I would just go to the day, whatever it is. It's, December 1st, whatever it is. Today's December 3rd. December 3rd, open it up and I would read the devotional and give my thoughts about what the devotional was speaking to me. And that's all I would do on my phone using the Facebook app to begin with. Even me, after I've been doing this for 15 years. This is only 2 years ago. Once I saw that I had an audience, I go, oh, wow, maybe I should do something more, because there were ducks walking around me and geese flying by and quacking while I was on. And I go, you know what? I'm going to move that into my studio. Who knew what was going to happen? And so I moved it into my home where I have a studio. It was a different home than this one, but a studio just much like this one. And I began using StreamYard. And you can get StreamYard by going to getstreamyard.live, getstreamyard.live. You go there and you can try it out for free for a little while. I think that's still possible. And what that enables you to do, it enables you to be able to go live on a couple different platforms. So I was going live on Facebook, Twitter at the time, and Twitch, I think it was, and was able to go and speak to different people. Understand that Twitch, which is more of a gaming platform, has a completely different audience. You should see the questions I get about Jesus Christ in Twitch. It's crazy, but it's pretty cool. It's really fun. And then I got the Facebook audience, and then we have the Twitter audience. All three are completely different types of audience. And so what StreamYard does, it now allows me to see the comments. So I got comfortable doing something that I completely felt uncomfortable doing, which was speaking about the Bible. At the time, it was very new to me to be doing this kind of stuff. I'm not very educated in the Bible, but I was doing it anyway. So I understand those of you that go live in the first couple of times, it's just not comfortable. And I felt very uncomfortable. Again, even though I've done it at that point for 15, 20 years. But as time went on, I got more comfortable, and now I was feeling more comfortable to take comments and picking and choosing the ones I wanted to take. And you don't have to take them all. You just pick the ones you want to comment on and use those. And then it begins to build after that. As that began to build, I'm just going through this series of events that you get more comfortable with comments, and it begins to grow. And now we're broadcasting on 6 different platforms. And I've turned the audio, which you can get a recording of using StreamYard. You just download the audio only file from StreamYard. And now I repurpose that into a podcast. It goes up into the podcast. And now people can either choose to watch us live, watch the recording of our video recorded on all the platforms like YouTube and Twitter and Twitch, or maybe some people are podcasting. That's their preference of listening to something. So now my audience is very broad, our audience, because now I do it with my wife every day. And now I've used one recording. So my wife and I sit here for 30 minutes, do one recording, and it's on all these platforms and a podcast, and I can have it transcribed and use it as a written version of the very same podcast. So now I can use it in so many ways, and I only record it once. Using StreamYard, those possibilities are very simple to do. So I hope that answered the question. I even forgot what the question was.
Well, I'm going to take it a step further because we talked about this. So imagine that Andy had an outline of he wanted to create a book. He could do this exact same thing, broadcast different, like he's thinking the book out and talking it out. It's going to all this audience at the same time. It's going to a podcast. It's being transcribed. You can then take the transcriptions and put them all together, curate them, edit them, and make a book out of it. And you're like, but I already broadcasted all that stuff. Who's going to want it? But they're all separate. And it's still, again, like he said, the Twitch audience is so different than the podcast audience or the YouTube audience. And the book audience is different than those other audiences. So that's kind of the point of, doing the video from your book, because you're going to reach a different audience. People consume things in a different way. And by turning your video into the book is a great way to create it, because then you're reaching another audience that way. Where do you have a comment on that? I'm sorry, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, you caught that. Yeah, I just thought of something as you were talking, because I've written 2 books based on transcriptions that I've made from other shows that I've done. Most of them are on dog training. But the other interesting thing, as you were talking and I was thinking, I said, remember what I told you. I first started this. I just got I always tell people it was the Holy Spirit. So, and again, I know there's people that are watching this that aren't religious or, that may not be Christians, but something told me, a man who was not very Christian at the time, just said, you know what, get on your bike, ride to a park, put your phone up on a tripod and begin to read these devotionals to people. And I'm going to show you how it's going to change your life. And that's all it started with. A phone on a tripod at Tri-City Park in Placentia, California. And I was speaking to a bunch of ducks and geese. This has grown over a year and a half, only a year and a half, which I made some people think is a long time, but it's not that long of a time. A year and a half is now turned into a broadcast to all these different stations, I call them, and a podcast. And we got noticed by something called the Edify app, which is a Christian podcast network. They asked if they could put our show on their podcast app. I looked the other day, Hetty and I looked the other day on the tool that we can use to find out who's watching our podcast. We are now speaking to several different countries across the world. We have listeners in Turkey, listeners in India, listeners in China, listeners in India, Canada, the United States, and I could go on. Or Germany is another one. I think Germany is the second highest viewership of or listenership of our podcast. And so I just want you to understand how important it is to just do it. You just got to push that live button. Everybody that's hesitating to push the live button, again, because you don't like the way you sound, look, or laugh, which is me. That's how I know what you're thinking, because I don't like any of those things. And I cannot read out loud. And yet here I am reading to a camera, and I hate reading. I tell this story all the time. In second grade, Mrs. Hull asked me to stand up and read something from Dr. Seuss book, and I peed my pants because I was so nervous. Really did pee my pants. And I had to sit down because I was so nervous. I hate reading out loud. I still hate reading out loud. And here I am again. I just wanted to share this with you, how important it is to push that button. No matter how much fear you have, no matter how much you dislike something about yourself, push the button. Thousands of people are listening to what we're saying because they're interested. And I know for sure we've changed some people, or God has changed some people's lives through our podcast, whether you believe it or not, whether you believe in God or not. What you have to offer, the message you have, somebody needs to hear it. It may be somebody in Hungary. It may be somebody in India. Your message will change somebody's life, and you won't do it until you push that button. It may take a year and a half, like us. It may take 2 days. But I know in a year and a half, we have several people that have reached out to us and says, your message that you had on this day, it caused me to make a decision, and that decision has changed my life. That's all I needed to hear. People ask me all the time, how much money are you making on this thing? We do have advertisers now. We do have that kind of stuff. And I thought, I don't even know. I think you guys have asked me in our group that we're on together. Yeah. And I go, I don't know, but I know that we've changed people's lives. I know that for sure. And everything else will come. And the opportunities have come, just to tell you the truth. But the change that has come between my wife and I and from our audience has been so dramatic, and it never would have happened unless I pushed the live button. Sorry, I had to get that out. I was going to burst.
Glad that you did. Well, and you just never know. It goes with the book, your live cast and your book. I had the story of a guy in an American citizen in a Japanese prison, got my book, Life Legacy Challenge. Don't ask me how he got his hands on my book, wrote us a letter and said, your book has changed my life. I now have purpose to be in this Japanese prison. I'm going to tell my story, how I was wrongfully committed, for this crime. And I'm sitting in this prison. And you're like, I just changed the life of someone in Japan because of my book, right? Yes. You just don't know. And it's the same with the live streaming. You don't know whose life you're going to change because it's a different platform. Did you talk about TV channels? I thought you said something about television, or was that you? That was you, wasn't it?
I think so. Well, I mean, as far as some of the things I did in the past in the dog training, not yet with the devotional, although my wife was on the 700 Club. So they did a whole documentary on her and her story. She's a former Muslim who accepted Jesus Christ. And so that's a big story. and she's a former FBI contractor and counterterrorism expert. So she has a pretty decent story. And so she has, but with the dog training, because of what I was doing on live streaming, and because of the books that I've written, got tons of opportunities of being on television. And that is all because of my taking it upon myself to build my authority. Nobody's going to do it for you. Yeah. You have to do it, and you build your authority. Next thing you know, I'm a leading expert on ABC, NBC, CBS, the Pet Channel, whatever those are. I already forgot the names of all of them. National Geographic, Nat Geo. I've been on them all because I started broadcasting my book at the time.
Yeah. So where do you see technology going with this? I mean, it might be hard to predict. I mean, who would have known that we would have TikTok wasn't around not too long ago. We didn't hear about TikTok or Clubhouse or these things. Where do you see platforms going, technology going in the future?
Well, only thing, really that I can see is it just getting better and easier. And they're coming up with StreamYard is coming up with more tools all the time to make it easier. They just added like 3 features to it. And so it's just going to make it easier for us to get our message out. They're making it so much easier to share a PowerPoint presentation on StreamYard. And again, people use Zoom and they use other ones like Be Live and that kind of stuff. I prefer StreamYard because right now for me, I've been on them all. I've been on everything from something called Blue Jeans to Periscope. I mean, all the way back to some of the old ones that we used to do on the phone where people could join and you wouldn't be able to stop them. So you'd have guests come on and you had to block them after they came on and did something stupid. Meerkat being one of those things. And another one called Blab, which are ones that nobody uses anymore. And so from those days, it just keeps getting better. It keeps getting easier. The quality of the video gets better. The quality of the sound gets better. And that's one thing I want to make sure and leave people with, that the sound is more important than the video. Make sure your sound is really good. When you can afford it and when you want to, make sure and get a microphone. But to answer your question, all I see is things getting better and easier to use and giving you more flexibility in what it is you can put on the presentation and share with people.
Which gives you less excuses of not to do it.
Yeah. I mean, just really, I often think about how hard it was for, to get a satellite up so the newscaster could talk to somebody in Walla Walla, Washington. You might as well be talking to somebody in Australia. And the cables and the satellites it would take to do that. Now it's like just push a button on your phone.
Yeah, it's all passe. My former husband, he bought when he was transitioning out of broadcasting, he bought a satellite transmission company with all these satellites. I'm like, why would he do that? Because I'm thinking pretty soon you're not going to need satellites. Like, why would you even? I don't know. But so I think that's kind of old technology. A lot of it, we're not needing a lot of that anymore. So you're an author. We're in a mastermind group together. We talk about publishing, how it's evolving. Where do you see the future of publishing in books?
Now, I think this might sound a little strange now that I'm thinking about this more and more. And it is that it's going to demand that the authors put out better content. There was a period of time, you and I, when we first started doing this self-publishing thing that we were doing back then, I'm going to be honest with you, I put out a couple of books that were horrible, but I became a #1 best-selling author with one horrible book on how to go live on Facebook. It got me 2 speaking engagements right away. Going Facebook Live was only maybe 2 or 3 weeks old. And I was the leading expert in Facebook Live because I wrote the first book on it that I know of and was already speaking in San Diego on a stage about going live on Facebook. The only thing that gave me the authority to do that is I've been going live on, like I said before, Meerkat and Blab and some other things. And so I was able to quickly be able to take that information I learned doing that and apply it to Facebook Live. The thing is, I'm telling you, it was not a really written book. As a matter of fact, I think I had 2 others that were not really that well written, but they got the job done. They got me on stage, they got me noticed and that kind of stuff. I think those days are coming to an end because it's too many people have bought books like that. And there's a lot of self-publishers out there. And now people are learning, you know what, is this guy one of those self-publishers that did it himself? I'm not sure if I'm going to invest my 99 cents or $10 or $15 or $30 without knowing more about this person. So I'm hoping this making sense. I really think that with that little trend that we had for about 5 or 6 years of anybody was able to put up any kind of trash on Amazon, that I think those days are going away. And we're going to be forced now as authors to put out really good content to make sure that we have actual editors editing our book. We should not be editing our own book, I don't think. And we need a second set of eyes on the cover, second set of eyes on the content, second set of eyes on how it's put on the pages and what it looks like. That's called something, and now I can't think of it for some reason. The way this formatted, the formatting of the book has to be sound and pleasing to the eye. And that's just going to be mandatory. So that's what I think is going to be changing. So make sure that you're putting out good content. That doesn't mean to not ever put out your book, because that thought you're thinking now, oh no, I'm never going to get my book out.
Back to the perfectionism thing again.
Yeah, no, you need to make sure you have good content, but you also need to make sure and put other people in the right place, kind of like running a business. I told you, I was really good at one thing, but that didn't mean I knew how to run a business either. And so maybe you're good at your one thing. And so, but there's other people that are good at creating a book for you, creating a cover, formatting, editing, putting it out there, knowing how to market it and how to get it to #1. And that's people like Elite Online Publishing that know how to do that, #1. But doing it yourself, as I did several times, is probably not going to work much anymore. because I'm not an editor. I'm actually horrible. I wrote hundreds of thousands of, not hundreds, but thousands of police reports. And even with writing thousands of police reports in 21 years as a law enforcement officer, I'm still a horrible writer. I'm still not great at it. So you need to have those other people in place. And again, I hope that that made sense, that just put out good content and hire the right people. I think that's the right thing to do.
Great quality is important. I think what's happened is we're transitioning to brand, right? That we realize it's not just a book that you're throwing out there. It represents your whole brand and your business. So if you're wanting to become an expert at that, that represents your brand. And if you're just going to throw it out there, then you've got something that doesn't give you the credibility necessarily. And same even with a fiction book, that's your brand. So you want everything about it to be right. You want all the footprint on Amazon, the Amazon author page to look wonderful and beautiful, the book to look beautiful, and everything about it that goes with it needs to elevate you. So again, like we say, don't get too caught up in it, but like, don't, if you're not the expert or you don't have the money to do it, then make sure you really take your time to put it up there and put it up right. But it's better to find people that know how to do it, so your brand does look professional and represents who you are and what your business is.
Just one more thing on that. And I think, you and I, again, know this from the clients that we've had in the past. And I've helped coach probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 900 people write their book as a coach for another organization. And I just want to caution people of falling in love with their title, their subtitle, and their cover. You may have great ideas. You may have a thought that, this title works for you as the author, but allow somebody else to have a professional, have you give them the room to tell you why maybe the title is not good for your book. Your subtitle may not be good for your book, and your cover may not be good for your book. Because we're writing it. My website, just one last really quick story, if you don't mind. When I was struggling, I lost everything. When the experts actually at the event that we were at together went to my website, they looked at my website and they said, "Do you like your website?" "Oh yeah, I think it's great." And they said, "Well, yeah, and what about this page? What about this page?" And each time I go, "Oh yes, that's exactly how I want it to look." I said, and they said, "We have no idea what you do." This is supposed to be, you're trying to advertise to pet dog people. Yes, but I think they need to see me rappelling from a helicopter with my police dog, because that will tell a pet dog owner that I'm really good at what I do. Well, what about this page where it shows you're in pursuit, you let your dog go and your dog goes and bites somebody? Because it had to do with all of my history, but told nobody that was coming to me for my dog's peeing in the front room, or my dog won't stop running out the front door. It tells that person looking for help with that, when they go to my page on my website, tells them nothing about how I can help them with that. It shows that I can rappel out of a helicopter with a dog. It shows how I can go to pursuit and teach my dog to bite people, but it doesn't really give me the message. So I fell in love with all that, and they quickly said, "No, this is what you need to do. If you want to get your message out, you need to change this and this." And once I was willing to let go of those things that I loved, it was amazing. Everything changed. And that was because I allowed an expert to take my content and make it better, and kind of help me get through the stuff that I fell in love with about maybe who I was and what I thought my title should be. Now, I'm going to tell you one title of a book that I did not change was Walking with God and a Dog. And they said, "That's confusing. I'm not sure why what this book is all about." I didn't change the title of that book. I kept it. So I would say 90% of what experts have told me, I've taken their advice and followed it, and they've always been right. And then the one where I decided, this is what I want to do, I think I was right on that one, because people understand what I was getting to in regard to that book. So not always do you have to take their advice, but I'm telling you, be willing to have somebody look at your content and give you maybe a truth that you don't want to hear. And that may be helpful. So
I agree with that 100%. We had a guy that came to us, he had a book, and it was a kind of a sketching of someone golfing on the cover of the book. And you're like, "Oh, it's a golf book." "Oh no, this is a relationship book about love and romance." I'm like, okay, I didn't get that at all from the title or the cover of the book at all.
Oh yeah, I had some doozies. I remember being there coaching at these events where you'd have 50 people there, authors there, and they would come to my table and say, "This is what," I go, I don't understand. I don't understand how you got those two things together. "Well, you see," and they had to go do a big explanation. I go, "Okay, that should be in your book. What
right.
you told me has to be in your book, but not on your cover, because nobody's going to know what your book's about." And so, yeah, it's so interesting. But people, it's okay. I mean, they love their stuff. They love what it is they're doing, but you just have to be willing to accept the opinion of somebody that really knows what they're talking about when it comes to selling books, creating books and selling books.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to tell you, so we followed Andy and we've had blue jeans. We've had all the things that he's had. He's like, hey, this is really good. I tried this. We're like, okay, let's try it. So Andy is the guinea pig. He tries it. He'll either say yes or no. If he says yes, then we end up following him doing it. And then he's like, okay, that's not good anymore. Now we're going to do this. I tried, this is better. So I trust his expertise. He's done it all. He's been there all. He's tried it all. And he's been the guinea pig for all of us.
I'll tell you, like Mel was saying, Be Live was one of those that I really liked for a really long time. And then StreamYard came around and I had no problem transitioning to the new one. I mean, I did have a problem because it was hard because I like those guys over at Be Live, but I don't mind. I mean, I want to use what is the best tool out there that's available and not going to kill your bottom line. So important.
All right. So we'll see you next time. Thanks, Andy, for coming by and appreciate you. Always love talking to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.